Hello again, everyone. This is game 4 of JDG versus T1, where we're going to be looking at draft. T1 won the last game, and it is currently 2-1 to JDG. And if you watched last video, you know how I felt about JDG's draft last game. So, heading into this game, JDG are going to have to adapt. If you saw game 2 and game 3, you'll know that like out of draft, what looked like were some really big problems on the side of T1, for JDG. Like the champions JDG had issues with that T1 were playing were Ryze and Lucian, so you should expect to see both of those banned this game or picked away from JDG, seeing as JDG is blue side. That is also why, I mean, of course Yumi ban on red side, have to. Caitlyn ban on blue side. Standard, I suppose. Ryze ban now being picked up by JDG because they're recognizing the fact that their playstyle is not going to cut it against Ryze. They love playing champions that go in from the look of it, which then means Ryze is going to have a lot of value. They're also recognizing that T1 have a lot of tricks with Ryze in terms of drafting. Last game we saw the Nocturne, which ended up changing the comp of T1 completely from more of a mid-rangey anti-dive composition to a 1-3-1 comp, just like that, and a comp that could pick off someone. Not a comp that could win 5v5s though, unless they manage to pick off someone. So T1 have been very creative with their drafts, I think. In terms of actual fighting, probably not so much, right? Like in terms of picking drafts that fight really well in a 5v5 manner or control objectives really well, T1 haven't done a good job of picking those types of drafts, but they are picking drafts that are unique, and Ryze is a champion that has enabled these flexible drafts that T1 have played the last 2 games, right? So JDG opt to ban it. I think that makes a lot of sense. JDG are not playing champions that are good into Ryze either, so it makes a lot of sense that they want to ban it. Would expect to see either a Lucian pick or a Lucian ban coming out from JDG. Aatrox ban, standard. Completely normal. Would expect to see a Lucian ban. Yep, makes sense. But what are we looking for bot lane now? Caitlyn and Lucian are both banned. So the top tier picks that we're immediately thinking are, well, you can't blind pick MF. You're thinking Ezreal, probably. Ezreal Karma sounds pretty good right now. Varus looks pretty good as well. Phelios also looks pretty good. Those are probably the 3 to 4 champs you're really eyeing up at the very moment. Kalista maybe also, but not sure that you want to pick Kalista. Very committal. Of course, if you're just going to fist fight, then go for it. I think JDG need to create some sort of chaos because T1 have just absolutely demolished them in the game. In terms of playing better in a macro manner. JDG are fighting better, but they're never getting fair fights, and they're never getting like actual fights. So they should pick something that can just allow them to fight very heavily or fight very hard. Like the Sejuani first pick. Think this, however, does signal that you're picking up probably a Sylas on B2. Probably something like a Sylas and probably an 80 carry. You can pick up Sylas here. You can probably pick up something like an MF here. An Ashe, something along those lines. Ashe, probably not good to come out this early, but you can definitely look to pick up an MF or a Kalista. But the problem is if you pick Kalista on R3, then your supports are going to get targeted pretty heavily. I'm wondering other first picks they could have gone for. Could have gone for a Seer, but then the problem is you're handing over Sejuani, and then they get Sejuani Sylas, which is pretty disgusting, pretty annoying for you to deal with as an Azir. Very easy to die in those situations. Yeah, generally speaking, Sejuani has been on like quite high priority this semifinals and the quarterfinals, and Azir hasn't been quite as high priority as he was earlier in the tournament. Just because people feel more comfortable playing Akali and Sylas into Azir than they did previously. So I think the Sejuani first pick makes sense. I'm trying to think, are there any other champions that we could realistically pick first pick? Can't really think of any. I think Sejuani's fine. First pick. Don't like the Viego, but I've already gone over why. I like the Varus pick. I think Varus is fine here. Could play Ezreal Karma here. I think that's a completely reasonable option as well. The problem is just then your mid pool is going to get targeted and you're going to see a Silas ban and you're going to see a Akali ban, which might be a bit rough for Sejuani. She's not going to have a mid laner that really sets her up very well. And the other problem with that is then you're leaning very heavily into a magic damage composition. You could also pick Yone here. Yone is interesting. Yone, Silas. Problem is just, it's a bit ugly. Oh, I don't like Bel'Veth this early. Please don't pick Bel'Veth. Would be a pretty bad pick, I think. Yeah, I think the issue with Bel'Veth is you cannot, like, you're gonna have a losing top lane probably, assuming that the enemy counter picks you. You can't really guarantee that you have winning lanes either, because Varus is super strong in lane. Generally speaking, Bel'Veth is super reliant on lanes. I will, however, say that from the look of this, it certainly looks like T1 are playing a comp that dives in, which Bel'Veth is good against. So in that regard, it's good for her. Problem is also just I feel like Bel'Veth needs an enchanter in some manner. So I think you have to pick either Karma here, but Karma feels really bad to blind here. Because then you're going to run into like a Nautilus probably or a Leona. Yeah, there's the Karma. Shumit's going to get locked in as well. Yeah, can be flexed to mid lane if needed. Although it is pretty weak, especially with... actually no, Sejuani's top. Yeah, it's fine, I think. I just don't like the Bel'Veth. Don't think you have a better pick than Karma here after you've shown the Bel'Veth, to be honest. I can't think of any. You've already shown your top, you're showing jungle. Can't pick AD, or you can't pick Ezreal, you can't pick Kalista. Can't pick MF. Can pick Azir. But then you run into Silas. But I think that's fine. I think you're happy with that. Other issue with picking Azir is you might run into Poke Varus, which is annoying for Azir to deal with. However, Poke Varus into these two champions is not as good, so you might be fine. You have enough tankiness to circumvent or to assure that it's not going to be a Poke Varus. Yeah, there's the Azir. Good pick. I like Azir. I mean, Team 1 are just demolishing draft here, from my perspective. Absolutely winning. What do you need to ban? You probably just ban Silas and Akali, actually. You need to ban diving threats. Either you need to ban diving threats here, or you need to just pivot into more of a peeling top lane, such as Ornn, such as Gangplank, or you need to pick up more peeling support. I don't mind the Talia ban. I think Azir can win in lane against Talia pretty hard, but they want to reduce variance. Talia can do some pretty psycho things, so I don't mind that. Could ban Ahri as well. Ahri looks pretty good here, I would say. I think Sylas Ahri would have been better bans than Talia. But maybe they think Ahri is just so bad that she's not going to get picked. Hate the Tahm Kench ban. Oh my... Despise the Tahm Kench ban. What the... Although, if you're gonna play Akali or Sylas here, you need a Tahm Kench ban, realistically speaking. But Tahm Kench just gets demolished in lane in this matchup. So hard, he cannot play. And if he picks Tahm Kench here, that opens up the door for Ezreal. And then Ezreal is going to be an Exodia pick this game. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like the Tahm Kench ban. Ashe? I mean, Ashe Karma is scary, I suppose. You also have Azir and Varus, easy to get caught. And you don't have Tahm Kench to prevent it. Yeah, I suppose so. It's not bad. Ashe Karma is super strong in lane. Plus it has like Freljord buff with Sejuani, so it makes sense. Adds up to me. I can see that. Fiora ban. Yeah. Good ban, I think. Renata? No, now you just pick Ezreal. Yeah, you just play Ezreal here. Oh, don't go Sivir. Kog'Maw is interesting, but I think it's just Ezreal. I don't go Jen, dude. You don't have damage. Yeah, just play Ezreal, man. Just go Ezreal. It's free win. Well, it's not free win, but it's the champ that's gonna do the most this game, I think. Yeah, Jhin as a champion is like lane neutralizing, but he doesn't really do a whole lot outside of that. Like Jhin just doesn't really do a lot. I think just play Ezreal Karma here. Ezreal can hit somewhat consistently in these fights. He can throw out a lot of Qs. He will outrange all of these guys, and you can just play slowly, and he will have winning lane. You will have a winning matchup for your Belveth. You're smiling. You're actually fine in that spot. Ezreal will outrange. I don't think Jhin is good. Jhin now signals that you're going to play full commit dive. Because Jhin as a champion, right? He creates opportunities for your team to dive in. But what are you diving into here, guys? You're diving into a Varus, and a Azir, and a Renata. Are you sure you want to dive into that? Because I'm not. You're jumping into a Renata ult. I think Renata was a good pick here, actually. I'm like looking back. Renata's good pick only, or well, primarily because you see these two champions, which means they're gonna come into you more than likely. So I actually don't mind the Renata that much. I think Renata's actually fine here. Yeah, there's the Sylas, as we expected. Don't think it's gonna change anything. Still think T1 are massively favored. Just, I mean, it blocks Ornn, I guess, because Ornn would allow Sylas to actually have decent engage. The problem with Ornn on the side of T1 is if Sylas gets Ornn ult, he can use it and kind of force out Renata ult or force out Varus ult. Like, he will force out one of these disengaging ults, which makes it a lot easier for the rest of his team to engage afterwards. Like, Sylas's job with Ornn ult is not realistically going to be to find an engage, because he can't. Like, sure, you can, technically speaking, find that engage. The problem is they have so many tools to disengage off of that initial Sylas Ornn ult engage. But his job is just to drag out one of those disengaging tools and give JDG better odds of like winning a fight then. Like, Sylas just has to find a psycho flank here. Darius is interesting. Darius is actually good here. Darius would... well, Jhin Kama, it's tough for him. But the rest he would be fine into. Yorick, I don't know how he plays at the moment. I don't like Gragas, man. I think just go Ornn instead. Even though you give Sylas a good ult, I think you have enough disengage with Ornn. Sylas Ornn ults, Ornn ults. Stalemate, doesn't matter. It's fine. You're good. You win. Yeah, I think this game was kind of fucked for JDG when they picked Belveth into Varus Viego. I think the game was kind of screwed at that point. And then obviously they decided to pick Jhin as well. I think these two picks were a bit troll. I think there are way better opportunities. Because when you see what T1 drafts, right, you need really, really hard engage on the side of JDG, or you need split pushing threats. I think split pushing threats could have done it as well. As soon as you see these three champions, you're like, okay, well, we're not really going to be able to control any space very well. So we either need to like force an engage onto them, like really, really hard. We're talking Malphite, Ornn, Nocturne, Gangplank, Leona, these types of champions. Or you need, which is why I really like the Ash ban, by the way. Or you need to play split push, or you need to play like 1-3-1 like SKT did last game, or T1 did last game. T1 had a masterclass last game on how you beat a team that beats you 5v5. Like, an absolute masterclass on it. So I think JDG could have taken a page out of their book and gone for that. Instead, they picked Jhin Belveth. I mean, Jhin will neutralize bot lane. Cool. T1 are a fine neutralizing bot lane. Like, Varus Renata will happily take a neutral bot lane against Karma Jhin. Jhin Karma should win it, but it's not gonna matter enough. Like, you get out of laning phase, you get around objectives. Varus, Renata are gonna have so much more value than Jhin Karma. And then Azir is gonna have more value than Sylas. Viego might not have more value than Belveth, but I mean, he will still have a lot of value. Sejuani will probably have more value than Gragas, but Gragas also works really nice as disengage. I think you just have too many disengage tools on T1 to prevent, like, hold back JDG's engage. And JDG need to engage because they get outranged really hard by the Azir Varus. So I think the game is just a done deal in draft, to be honest. JDG have to make something crazy happen, which might be why they picked the Jhin. I think if you have Ezreal here, at least you have tools. At least you have tools to take back space without jumping into a Renata ult, without jumping into an Azir ult, without jumping into a Gragas, you know? But yeah, I think, yeah, that's kind of how it was decided. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and have a good one. See ya. Bye.